and welcome to Lounge Rōnin. All things, everything. And if you are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button and make sure to subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss ancient time travel mythology. Now, I did a stream about this way back. I decided to re-upload it mainly because I had some audio issues and I wanted to fix those issues. And then I decided, you know what? Let me do it again, do it fresh, and see what new thoughts come to mind. And it's going to be nice and sweet. I got a couple articles we're going to go through and share my thoughts, and we'll leave it at that. Give me one moment as I realize a grammatical error in my thumbnail, and I would like to fix that real quick. But while I get that taken care of, just like to let everyone know that I'll be having a new single coming out this Saturday, and a new music video that'll be coming out on this Sunday as well. So just keep an eye out for that. So yeah, and I'll be uploading at least 3 for the coming new year. I'll be uploading at least 3 singles a month, working my way up to a big project. So just letting you guys know, a little update on things to come for the new year. Now that that has been taken care of, without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty. Now, this article was written and updated January 8th, 2022 by John Black. Time travel. From ancient mythology to modern science. Time travel and time machines have been a topic of science fiction in countless movies for many decades. In fact, it appears that the possibility to time travel, either into the future or into the past, has appealed to the imagination of mankind for centuries. While many may think it is absurd to believe that we could travel backwards or forwards in time, Some of the world's most brilliant scientists have investigated whether it could one day be made a reality. Research into time travel. Albert Einstein, for example, however you feel about him, concluded in his later years that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. And most are familiar with his well-known concept of relativity. That is, that time is relative and not absolute, as Newton claimed. With the proper technology, such as a very fast spaceship, one person is able to experience several days while another person simultaneously experiences only a few hours or minutes. Yet the wisdom of Einstein's convictions had very little impact on cosmology or science in general. The majority of physicists have been slow to give up the ordinary assumptions we make about time. However, if time travel was really possible, one can hardly contemplate that this may mean for humanity. Whoever had the power to move through time would have the power to modify history. While this may sound attractive, it would be impossible known to the consequences of any alteration of past events, and how this would affect the future. This briefly makes me think of, it may have happened last year or the year before last, but I believe scientists down in Antarctica, I believe it was, they said that they had discovered a parallel universe of ours where time went backwards. And I only bring that up because, to think about the fact that there is a parallel universe to ours, but time is going backwards. So I'm trying, it's kind of weird to kind of try to contemplate what would a lifestyle be in such a scenario. Seeing as scientists are able to figure this out, I don't, it just made me think of wondering if whether there is a correlation with being able to, not necessarily time travel, but time travel to parallel universes rather than time traveling back in time to yours. Is it possible to create a machine that can, or an algorithm that can search for a parallel universe, pretty much similar to yours, and where you're able to, drastically affect things? I don't know, just something that kind of just popped into my head. But I think if we were to just kind of have fun with the idea, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility for someone to utilize that type of technology and possibility. I don't know. Interesting. All right, let's get back into it. Well, on another thought, it also kind of makes me wonder, like, it also made me think about this this very eccentric substitute teacher I had back in the day. And she talked about this idea of hold on a second, guys. Apologies. Okay. All right. She just had this idea of, like, oh God, I'm trying to remember this, like, telescope that could like look into the past. I don't know. She had a really wacky idea, but we'll continue. But like, just think about it. Like the ability to like create an algorithm or a super quantum computer that have the ability to decipher and find a parallel universe almost exactly like yours, and where you could go in there and affect things for yourself. Whether that means replacing that version of yourself. I don't know if there would be consequences to it, but something to think about. Okay. Here we have an illustration from the Menologian of Basil II of the Seven Sleepers, a medieval legend about a group of youths who hid in a cave to escape persecution and emerged over 300 years later. Man, that is wild. I don't know. That's wild. It's a beautiful painting. Okay. Time travel in ancient mythology. If we look at ancient texts, we can find a number of references to time travel. In Hindu mythology, there is a story of King Ravata, Kakundi, who travels to meet the creator Brahma. Even if this trip didn't last long, when Kakudima, oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. Ravata, that's easier to pronounce, returned back to Earth, 108 yugas had passed on Earth, and it is thought that each yuga represents about 4 million years. The explanation Brahma gave to Ravitka, oh my god, Ravata is a time runs differently in different planes of existence. Now, what's interesting about this idea of that time runs different in different planes of existence. I mean, it's like, it's almost as if, in my mind, just, thinking of the idea of, intelligent design creating planes of existence where time moves differently, almost in a sort of way of, I don't know, balancing out time, creating a a seam to time. I don't know. I'm just thinking about like how these webs of time or ley lines and these ideas of just like being able to it just reminds me of the chronovisor, which was a device that allowed people to witness events in the past. You're not really interacting with it, you're just viewing the past. And I'm just wondering, when it comes to time and different planes of existence, you know, as they said, time moves differently in different planes of existence, but then that also would mean the way you see time and interpret time, you know, is different to who you are as an individual. And I just think it's interesting how you have this idea of Raivada, heading over there to Brahma, meeting the creator. He comes back and, 108 million years has passed. And it's just fascinating to me, like, if you have the ability to travel to a parallel reality of your exact same time, or even farther in time, is time the same in that parallel universe, or is it interpreted differently? I'm just curious. I'm just throwing these things out there for discussions to have down in the comments section. But let's continue. Enough of a Rōnin rant. Similarly, we have references in the Quran about the cave of Al-Kahf, The story refers to a group of young Christian people who in 250 AD tried to escape persecution and retreated, under God's guidance, to a cave where God put them to sleep. They woke up 309 years later. The story coincides with the Christian story of the seven sleepers, with a few differences. Well, while we're at it, let's take a look at the seven sleepers. Okay. Yeah, what is going on? Oh, okay. Here we go. What the hell? Hold on one second, guys. I see we got someone over on YouTube. Hey there, much love. Thanks for stopping by. We're talking about ancient mythology and time travel. And I'm just trying to fix something. Okay, there we go. I will deal with this strange issue later. Oh, okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Alrighty, let's get back into it. Alright, now this story was updated June 25th, 2022 by DHWTY. The Ancient Grotto of the Seven Sleepers. The short story, Rip Van Winkle, written in 1819 by the American writer Washington Irving, is about a man who woke up after a sleep of more than 2 decades. Although such of a work of fiction is a relatively modern piece of writing, tales of people who fall asleep for extraordinarily long period of time before waking up is a common motif in various cultures. One such story is the Grotto of the Seven Sleepers. Unlike the story of Rip Van Winkle, I like saying that, Rip Van Winkle, however, the story has a strong religious facet. Here we have the Grotto of the Seven Sleepers in Ufis, Turkey. Decius and the Ancient Grotto of the Seven Sleepers. The Ancient Grotto of the Seven Sleepers is located in Ufis, in modern-day Turkey. According to the Christian version of the story, the Roman Emperor Decius came to Ufis to enforce his law against Christians. He found 7 Christian youths, tried them, and gave them some time to consider their position before leaving the city. When news of Decius' return reached Ufis, the youths refused to give up their faith, decided to give their property to the poor, and went to a cave on Mount Koios to pray and prepare for their deaths. When the Roman soldiers arrived, they found them asleep in the cave and were ordered to seal its entrance with large stones, trapping the youth inside. About 180 years later, a wealthy landowner by the name of Adolius decided to open the cave to use it as a cattle stall. To his surprise, when he opened it, he found the youths asleep, but alive, When they awoke, they were hungry and decided one of the youths named Diomedes into the city to buy some bread. And here we have an illustration of Odysseus orders the walling in of the seven sleepers in a 14th century manuscript. It's beautiful. Diomedes was astonished to see churches in the city, as he thought that he had only been asleep for a day. When Diomedes tried to pray for bread using old coins from the reign of Odysseus, the bishop was summoned. The bishop accompanied Diomedes to the cave and was told their story. The sleepers then died praising God and were declared saints. There is a parallel story in the Quran. The Islamic version, however, is much less detailed than the Christian one. For instance, the Islamic version of the story does not mention the number of sleepers or when the story took place. It does, however, state that the sleepers slept for 300 solar years, or 309 solar years, and that a dog guarded the grotto. Now, if you've seen any of my earlier live streams, you will know that I have stressed and said that many of these stories that you are hearing read in religious texts, they're all the same. They're pretty much all the same stories. You look at the great, the flood with Noah, and in the Hindu text, his name is Manu. Noah, Manu. I mean, I could go on and on, but all of these stories, they're all similar. The creation myths, they're all similar. I mean, you look at when the Christian monks went to South America and they saw that the Mayans had the creation story of the same one well before them. The Hindus had it well before them. I mean, you can keep going back and back, and the story is all the same, no matter where you go throughout the world. So I don't know what that means in its entirety. That's for you to interpret and to reflect on. I'm just giving you my perspective and what I have noticed. It's no different than when you look at the name of Jesus. Buddha, Yahweh, Allah, Krishna. I mean, I'm not going to keep on being repetitive, but just something to think about. Shout out to my Rumble viewers. Really appreciate you guys watching. Hit that like button if you're enjoying the stream so far, and maybe leave a thumbs up in the comments section or with your thoughts. But let's continue. All right. Here we have another illustration of the seven sleepers of Ephesus, folio from a Phalamna, Book of Omens. Now, I mean, they look Asian in this illustration, but I'm not trying to discriminate or anything, but they kind of do. I don't know if... Oh, okay. I see. This is the Quran version. Okay, yep. Now I see it. All right, my mistake. Apologies. The authenticity and meaning of the seven sleepers story. As with all stories in the Bible, regardless of their authenticity, these kinds of tales always served a purpose. In the case of the Grotto of the Seven Sleepers, it seems that there was a group of heretics who denied the resurrection of the body during the time in which the sleepers are said to have awoken from their slumber. The seven sleepers were thus taken as proof of the resurrection of the body. Whether the seven sleepers did actually exist is another question altogether. The occurrence of this so-called miracle meant that the cave was turned into a pilgrimage site. A church was later built on the cave, as evidenced by excavations carried out in the late 1920s. The transformation of the cave into a pilgrimage site would almost certainly have been a source of valuable income for the local church. As for the Islamic version of the story, it should be placed within the context of the Quran. The story of the seven sleepers was told in order to answer a question posed to the Prophet Muhammad by the Jews in Medina via the people of Mecca, in order to test his authenticity. The vagueness of the story is supposed to emphasize that such details are known only to God and are not important to man. Instead, it is the lesson that can be learnt from it that is of greater importance. Archaeologist and historian John Bedell suggests that the story could be understood as an echo of shamanistic beliefs. What shamans in many cultures did was to fall into a sort of sleep or trance in which their souls left their bodies and explored other planes of existence. Bedell writes on his blog, Bensosia, the lore of shamanism is full of shamans whose power was so great that they could do this for years. Even more common are stories of shamans who did this on their first magical journeys, falling into comas of fabulous length before wakening to tell them of marvelous things. Now, for anyone out there who's seen the Dark Crystal, now the 1980s, that's an amazing film, great film. But there was a TV show on Netflix, which was, oh god, I can't remember if it was a prequel or the sequel. I can't remember. Or like a reboot. It was one of those. It was really, really good. It was really unfortunate that they canceled it. But, that's Netflix. They tend to just have a really good thing and then just cancel it. But then keep all the other crap. But anyways, the old woman, the old shaman woman, I cannot think of her name. Dora, I don't remember what her name was. But she had a really cool, really funky name, very funky character. And in the Netflix show, you see one of the little people, and he's like tending to her home and cleaning everything up, and you see her body, and you see him walk up to her body, and you see him just start wiping off dust off of her body. Very funny. It was really cute. And then she wakes up, and she's like, "Oh my god." I forgot the character's name, and she's like, "You wouldn't believe where I've been. I went to this galaxy, and I went over here, and da this." And she's telling him all this, and she's like, "Hey, you look just the same when I last saw you." The character goes back, and he's like, "I'm his grandfather. You've been gone or asleep for 100 years or 200 years, something like that." And I don't want to spoil too much. It's actually really, really good. And if you're really into ancient mythology and the occult and all of that kind of stuff, you would really, really like that show. But the reason why I was bringing it up is because, here is this shaman, and she used these abilities. I don't want to spoil stuff, but she used these abilities, and she was able to, go into a coma for hundreds of years. Her body didn't decompose, nothing. It just collected dust. And she's able to then traverse the universe and go to many different worlds and interact with many different beings. And it reminds me of, Tibetan monks. And there's a really good documentary on, what's the channel? The Universe Inside Me, on Buddhist monks and how they'll transcend into enlightenment. And you can look it up. It's incredible. They'll essentially be meditating, but their bodies almost like self-mummify. And they've done like X-ray analysis and even heating analysis. And what they've realized is that there is still a presence inside this monk's body, even though it is essentially, he has shrunken and like his body has mummified itself. And what they've actually even been able to record is the image of his soul leaving his body, yet his body is still alive. It's some really wild stuff. The Universe Inside Me, the YouTube channel, you head over to them, they have it on there. Type in Universe Inside Me, Buddhist, transcendence or something like that. Excuse me, apologize. Well, it's really fascinating stuff, and I really believe that a lot of these things are, in fact, really possible. You look at Edgar Cayce and mind reading and being able to astro project, and the fact that the CIA was working on projects like that, astro projection. So you'd be foolish to act as if all of this is like sci-fi fantasy, when you can go and look up on the CIA these documents of them experimenting on this stuff. So I'm just saying, something to to reflect on and to consider when you do your own personal research on these things, which I highly recommend you guys do. But let's continue. Here we have a photo of the Grotto of the Seven Sleepers in Turkey. Visiting the Grotto of the Seven Sleepers. While several sites have been named the true cave of the Seven Sleepers, such as one in Amman, Jordan, it appears that the legend was born in Ephesus, located near to modern-day Sulcuk in Turkey. The Grotto of the Seven Sleepers, known locally as Yidi, is home to several rock-cut tombs, as well as the ruins of a church which was carved into the rock. Several hundred caves were found dating back to the 5th and 6th century AD, and there are inscriptions dedicated to the Seven Sleepers. While it's just 1.5 kilometers from Ephesus, in the side of Panier Mountain, the grotto itself is usually closed to the public with a wire fence and lock. Fascinating. I think that's wonderful. We get a little glimpse into other stories of different cultures, and like I was saying, there seems to be a connection, a correlation. Alrighty, let's get back into it. Okay. Where was I? Give me a second. Okay, we covered. All right, here we go. Another story comes from the Japanese legend of Urashima Taro, an individual who was sent to visit the underwater palace of the dragon god Rijun. He stayed there for 3 days, but when he returned to the surface, 300 years had passed. You see, again, 300. Interesting. I wonder what the significance of that is. In the Buddhist text, Pali Canon, it is written that in heaven of the 30 devas, the place of the gods, time passes at a different pace, where 100 earth years count as a single day for them. There are many more references to time travel to be found within ancient mythology. Alright, and here we have an illustration of Urashima Taro returning from the Dragon King's palace, only to find that 300 years had passed. Scientific research into time travel. Probably the most well-known story of the accidental time travel is the Philadelphia experiment, which allegedly took place in 1943, with the purpose of cloaking a ship and making it invisible to enemy radar. However, it was said that the experiment went horribly wrong. The ship not only vanished completely from Philadelphia, but it was teleported to Norfolk and went back in time for 10 seconds. When the ship appeared again, some crew members were physically fused to bulkheads, others developed mental disorders, a few disappeared completely, and some reported traveling into the future and back. Allegedly, Nikola Tesla, who was the director of engineering and research at the Radio Company of America at the time, was involved in the experiment by making all the necessary calculations and drawings, also providing the generators. Now, a little fun fact. Donald Trump's, was it grandfather? Great-grandfather? Worked for the FBI. And he collected all of Tesla's research. And if you don't know, there is a book about Barron Trump. It was written in the 1500s, and he was a time traveler. And there are speculations, hearsay, that Barron Trump is a time traveler. Make of that what you will. But I'm sure my conspiracy heads out there with their tinfoil koofies and baseball caps are well aware of the mysteries regarding Barron Trump and time travel. Ay, ay, ay. It's getting funky out there. But the Philadelphia experiment, that's a real thing. I've seen images of the stuff. I've listened to researchers who really did a deep dive into it, and that really happened. They've done multiple movies on it. And, if you know anything about Hollywood, they're always telling you the truth. It's always the devil in the details. It's always the devil's in the details. I mean, take a look at that recent movie that came out, Leave the World Behind. Or next year's movie, Civil War. So, all right. Where was I? Okay, yeah, the Philadelphia experiment. So, I'm just saying, I would do your research into the Philadelphia experiment. It's some pretty wild stuff. Oh, and look at that. Remember when I spoke about the chronovisor? And here we go. Have you heard about the chronovisor? Supposedly invented in the 60s. It was a machine that could catch electromagnetic information remaining in the ether and visualize it. So you could literally watch history. So here is a device. And that supposedly there is our boy, Jesus Christ. JC. Big J. So, like I said, do a little deep dive into this stuff. What's it called? The Y Files has a really good 20-30 minute video on the chronovisor. Look into ether. That is some real stuff as well. I'm not trying to sound all, crazy, but a lot of this stuff really is real. That's the funny thing about a lot of this stuff is that it's real, but we have been conditioned and domesticated to believe that it's fake. But that's a whole nother conversation. Let's get back into it. Enough of a Rōnin rant. But here we go. In 1960, we have another interesting case report of the scientist Pellegrino Ernetti, who claimed that he developed the chronovisor, a machine that would enable someone to see the past. His theory was that anything that happens leaves an energy mark that can never be destroyed, something like a mystical Akashic records. Ernetti allegedly developed this machine that could detect, magnify, and convert this energy into an image, something like a TV showing what happened in the past. Now, I did a two-parter on Edgar Cayce. I highly recommend you guys check it out after this episode. I'm just telling you guys, this stuff is, I don't know, man. It's wild, it's fascinating, and downright scary. Controversial experiments related to time travel. In the 1980s, there are reports of another controversial time travel experiment, and the Montauk Project, which again allegedly experimented with time travel among other things. Whether the Philadelphia and Montauk experiments actually took place is still under debate. However, it is common sense to assume that the military would definitely be interested in the possibility of time travel and would engage in extensive research on the subject. I mean, you remember that movie Looper? Whether you like, Rian Johnson or not, the concept of the mafia using time travel, pretty cool. In 2004, Marlon Pullman, a scientist, engineer, and member of Mensa with a bachelor, MBA, and PhD, applied for a patent for a method of gravity distortion and time displacement. In 2013, Wasfi al-Shaldadafat, I'm sorry, I butchered that one terribly, filed another patent for a space compression and time dilation machine that could be used for time travel. According to physics.org, the physicist Professor Ronald Lawrence Mallet of the University of Connecticut was working in 2006 on the concept of time travel, based on Einstein's theory of relativity. At the time, Mallet was absolutely convinced that time traveling was possible. He predicted that human time travel would be possible in our century. Particle physicist Brian Cox, quoted in a 2013 article published in the Huffington Post, agreed that time travel is possible but only in one direction. We also have the mysterious story of Ali Razaki, managing director of Iranian Center for Strategic Inventions, who the Daily Mail reported had claimed to have developed a device that could see anywhere from 3 to 5 years in the future. His initial story disappeared from the internet a few hours after it was published. In theory, time travel is possible, even if it is difficult to comprehend. Has the research cited above brought us closer towards making time travel a reality? If so, we can only hope that the technology does not get into the wrong hands. Yeah, well, spoiler alert, probably already is. Telling you. Time travel. But let's jump over to physics.org real quick and let's see what they got on us for the menu. Okay. Professor predicts human time travel this century, by Lisa Zyga, April 4th, 2006. Here we have an image of Ronald Mallet, professor of the University of Connecticut. With a brilliant idea and equations based on Einstein's relativity theories, Ronald Mallet from the University of Connecticut has devised an experiment to observe a time-traveling neutron in a circulating light beam. While his team still needs funding for the project, Mallet calculates that the possibility of time travel using this method could be verified within a decade. Black holes, wormholes, and cosmic strings. Each of these phenomena has been proposed as a method for time travel, but none seem feasible for at least one major reason. Although theoretically they could distort space-time, they all require an unthinkably gigantic amount of mass. Mallet, a UConn physics professor for 30 years, considered an alternative to these time travel methods based on Einstein's famous relativity equation, E equals mc squared. Quote, Einstein showed that mass and energy are the same thing, said Mallet, who published his research on time travel in 2000 in Physics Letters. Quote, time travel we've designed uses light in the form of circulating lasers to warp or loop time instead of using massive objects. End quote. To determine if time loops exist, Mallet is designing a desktop-sized device that will test his time warping theory. By arranging mirrors, Mallet can make a circulating light beam which should warp surrounding space. Because some subatomic particles have extremely short lifetimes, Mallet hopes that he will observe these particles to exist for a longer time than expected when placed in the vicinity of the circulating light beam. A longer lifetime means the particles must have flowed through a time loop in the future. Quote, say you have a cup of coffee and a spoon, and the coffee is empty space, and the spoon is a circulating light beam. When you stir the coffee with the spoon, the coffee or the empty space gets twisted. Suppose you drop a sugar cube in the coffee. If empty space were twisting, you'd be able to detect it by observing a subatomic particle moving around the space. End quote. And according to Einstein, whenever you do something to space, you also affect time. Twisting space causes time to be twisted, meaning you could theoretically walk through time as you walk through space. As physicists, our experiments deal with subatomic particles, says Mallet. Quote, how soon humans will be able to time travel depends largely on the success of these experiments, which we will take the better part of a decade. And depending on breakthroughs, technology, and funding, I believe that human time travel could happen this century. End quote. Step back a minute. Sorry, only figuratively. How do we know that time is not merely a human invention and that manipulating it doesn't make sense? What is time? That is a very difficult question, said Mallet. Quote, time is a way of separating events from each other. Even without thinking about time, we can see that things change, seasons change, people change. The fact that the world changes is an intrinsic feature of the physical world, and time is independent whether or not we have a name for it. End quote. Quote, to physicists, time is what's measured by clocks. Using this definition, we can manipulate time by changing the rate of clocks, which changes the rate of which events occur. Einstein showed that time is affected by motion, and his theories have been demonstrated experimentally by comparing time on an atomic clock that has traveled around the Earth on a jet. It's slower than a clock on Earth. End quote. Although the jet flying clock regained its normal pace when it landed, it never caught up with Earth clocks, which means that we have a time traveler from the past among us already, even though it thinks it's in the future. Some people show concern over time traveling, although Mallet, an advocate of the parallel universe theory, assures us that time machines will not present any danger. Quote, the grandfather paradox, where you go back in time and kill your grandfather, is not an issue, said Mallet. Quote, in a sense, time travel means that you're traveling both in time and into other universes. If you go back into the past, you'll go into another universe. As soon as you arrive at the past, you're making a choice, and there'll be a split. Our universe will not be affected by what you do in your visit to the past. End quote. In the light of this casual, quote, safety, it's kind of ironic that what prompted Mallet as a child to investigate time travel was desire to change the past in hopes of a different future. When he was 10 years old, his father died of a heart attack at age 33. After reading The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, Mallet was determined to find a way to go back and warn his father about the dangers of smoking. This personal element fueled Mallet's perseverance to study science, masters Einstein's equations, and build a professional career with many high notes. Since the 70s, his research has included quantum gravity, relativistic cosmology, and gauge theories. And he plans to publish a popular science memoir book this November 26, with help from Bruce Henderson, the New York Times bestselling author. The book will be called Time Traveler, a physics quest for the ultimate breakthrough. And I can attest, I have read the book. It is a fascinating book, and I have even met Dr. Mallet. Now let's move on to our next scientist, hear what he has to say. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. All right. Time travel is possible, but only to the future. English physicist says. Time travel is possible in one direction only. Celebrated physicist says. This is written by Sarah Gates, September 13th, 2013. Okay. All right, that is coming all weird. Oh, Lord. Never mind. We're going to skip this article because I don't know why it's coming out like that. Hold on. Let me see if I can refresh it. Nope. Okay. Well, I've read it over before I delved into this one. It's not the best, but that's fine. I really wanted to get to this article, actually. So, we'll do this one. Now, remember how they, in the main article that we read, they talked about that Iranian scientist who's his claim, and then how it immediately got scrubbed for the internet. Well, lo and behold, it's returned. Iranian scientist claims to have invented a time machine that can predict the future, but can only see 8 years ahead. Ali Raz, 27, claims device can detail person's life with 98 accuracy. I can't pronounce that for some odd reason. Spent 10 years developing complex algorithms to arrive at predictions. Says his warmongering government can only use it to predict military conflicts. Won't release prototype yet in case Chinese steal it and produce millions. The Chinese would do that too. You'd be going on Alibaba, you'd be going on Wish.com, you'd be getting a knockoff time travel machine. Oh Lord. Oh gosh. My Lord, that'd be so funny. You'd be like a Nazi skinhead, you buy one of those. You input the coordinates, thing slips up. Next thing you know, you're in the middle of Nigeria, in 32 AD. Oh Lord. That would drive. Oh, that'd be so funny. Okay, let's get into the article before I continue going off on a bunch of little stories. All right, an Iranian scientist claims he has invented a time machine that allows you to predict the future with 98% accuracy. Ali Raz says his device can produce a printout detailing any individual's life between 5 and 8 years in advance, taking readings from the touch of a user. He claims the Iranian government, whose nuclear program has caused concern around the world, can use his invention to predict military conflicts and forecast the fluctuations in the value of foreign currencies and oil. All right. He says the device is the size of a laptop, uses a complex set of algorithms which took him 10 years to develop, but has not revealed any concrete details about his invention. Unlike the time traveling DeLorean in the hit film Back to the Future, Mr. Ross says his device will not take you into the future. It will bring the future to you. He told the Far State News Agency, "My invention easily fits into the size of a personal computer case and can predict details of the next 5 to 8 years of the life of its user." Naturally, a government can see 5 years in the future would be able to prepare itself for challenges that might destabilize it. As such, we expect to market this invention among states as well as individuals once we reach a mass production range. Mr. Ross, who claims he has 179 inventions listed under his name, has been criticized by friends and family for trying to play God. But he said this project is not against our religious values at all. The Americans are trying to make this invention by spending millions of dollars on it, where I have already achieved it by a fraction of the cost, he said, without divulging how much. He said Iran was not planning to launch the prototype just yet in case the Chinese will steal the idea and produce millions overnight. Iran has been ridiculed in recent months for attempting to showcase its technological advances only to face accusations they were faked. In February, it proudly unveiled a stealth fighter jet at a ceremony attended by President Mohammed Ahmadinejad, but experts quickly expressed serious doubts about whether it could even fly. A picture of a domestically produced Quar 313 apparently soaring over Iran mountains did little to curb skepticism amid claims the plane never actually left the ground but was simply doctored using Photoshop. Oh, is that like the same spy plane that they shot down of ours in Iran that they were able to back engineer and then okay, gotcha. Anyways, critics, but they have a nuclear program? Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't want to get political. Anyways, critics also believe Iran's claims that it launched a monkey into space could have been faked, like the moon landing. Anyways, scientists in Tehran hailed the mission to send a semi 75 mile above Earth and back into Kovaska rocket as a success. But questions marks were raised after the monkey presented to the nation as the heroic astronaut looked remarkably different than the one which made off. Okay. So take that one with a grain of salt, whether it's the chrono visor or this Iranian guy. I mean, when was this article out? When was this put out? 2013. I mean, it's entirely possible because Iran's still kicking. It's still holding on strong. Uh, yeah, is they're still holding on strong, and that was one of the seven on the list of seven that needed to be regime changed, and one of them was Iran, and Iran is still holding strong. So I don't know what to tell you guys. That machine might be still working. You see what's going on down the peninsula. I mean, I'm just saying. All I'm saying. Oh, what's good? Shout out to Jay Pylon. Thanks for stopping by, Jay. I really appreciate it, man. Much love. I mean, if I were you, Jay, if you get some time, man, yeah, look into this whole concept of 300 and what was it, 309 or 308? I just think it's really interesting. This is Jay over on YouTube. Much love to everyone on Rumble as well. I see we got 5 over there on Rumble. Appreciate Jay for stopping by. Yeah, I'm telling you guys, you know, Jay, if you ever get a chance, go on to Jay Pylon's channel. He's part of Hotep Nation. Shout out to Hotep Nation. If you're into baseball cards and sports memorabilia, that guy's got it locked down. He also does a lot of gematria stuff. So if you're also into that stuff, I highly recommend you follow him on Twitter. But one thing I just wanted to say as we wrap things up here is that I really recommend that people really do their own research into these things. Because I love this saying. It's a quote from Star Wars. And I'm not going to talk about the current state of Star Wars, or I should say Disney Star Wars. But I love this quote, and it's there's always a bit of truth in legends. And I feel that we as individuals should really take that seriously into consideration. Because as more and more ancient archaeological sites are excavated, as Göbekli Tepe keeps on getting more excavated, as more things keep on getting unearthed, more advancements in LiDAR and radar technology, a lot of stories that we consider myths and legends are going to be coming true. One of the favorite ones I love to point to is the Battle of Troy. In the Iliad, we thought that was a myth. We thought it was a story. We thought it didn't really happen. And then, lo and behold, the next thing you know, archaeologists literally find a portion of the wall of Troy. So we have to really take into consideration that, maybe these legends are really true. But we have been so domesticated by and indoctrinated by this corrupt, evil, parasitic system to dispel our belief system, to know the true history, to know our true potentiality. These are things I wholeheartedly believe. And I really do believe that. And I think it's something that we should all, people who, aren't as me or are not as open-minded, or who are open-minded, take a second to really think about these things. Take a second and go down that rabbit hole, and you might be surprised what you learn and what you uncover for yourself, about yourself. Because it's, as I like to put it, the veil continues to get unlifted, and as that veil continues to get unlifted, we are going to see more and more of the truth, whether it's UFOs, whether it's ancient societies, you name it, you got it. So these are just things I think everyone should really take into consideration and reflect on. And make sure you check out some of my other videos that I have on other live streams that I have, where I talk about giants. I did a lot of videos on giants. I'm a big fan of the Nephilim. Like I said, check out the Edgar Cayce ones. Since if you really enjoyed this one, check out my episode on ancient Hindu texts and quantum mechanics. That kind of ties into space-time and all that fun jazz. So I really recommend you guys, take that time out there, do your own research, be open-minded, and prepare yourselves for 2024, because it's going to be a wild one. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Rōnin all things, everything. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the content, please make sure to hit that like button and leave a comment with your thoughts below. And share this stream out with like-minded viewers. And subscribe and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.